The Krovak Fleet Commander Vex 9 studied the tactical display with growing frustration. For 8 weeks, the small alien vessel had evaded capture, somehow anticipating every move his forces made. Worse, the organic beings on the planet below had begun fighting back with unexpected effectiveness. These humans, as they called themselves, fought differently than any species Vex 9 had encountered. They used tactics that seemed to have no logic, turning their ships into weapons when cornered, fighting harder when they should surrender. It was disturbing. "Commander, we are detecting multiple faster-than-light signatures approaching the system," reported his tactical officer. Vex 9 examined the sensor data. 43 ships were dropping out of faster-than-light travel at the edge of the system. They were smaller than Krovak vessels, but moved with coordinated precision. "Prepare the fleet for battle. These new arrivals must be destroyed before they can interfere with our harvesting operations." On the bridge of the TFS Liberation, Admiral Hayes watched the Krovak fleet begin moving toward them. The enemy ships were massive and intimidating, but she had faced worse odds during the Martian. "War. All ships, this is Admiral Hayes. Execute Battle Plan Alpha. Remember, we're not here to win a traditional space battle. We're here to save innocent lives and show these invaders that some species fight back." The human fleet scattered across the system like seeds in the wind. Instead of forming a traditional battle line, each ship group had its own mission. This was warfare as only humans practiced it. Chaotic, unpredictable, and deadly. Captain Porter led her mining ships toward the gas giants' rings. The ice and rock would provide cover for their unconventional weapons. Her converted plasma cutters could slice through enemy hull armor, while her mining charges had been turned into guided missiles. "Remember, people," Porter told her crews, "we're not warships, but we know how to break things apart. These Krovak want to mine our new friend's planet? Let's show them what real miners can do." Commander Ryan Brooks descended toward Valthara's surface with 500 human marines and 1,000 Valthari fighters. The combined force landed near the largest remaining refugee camp, where Krovak ground forces were preparing a final assault. The battle for Valthara began on 3 fronts simultaneously. In space, human ships used hit-and-run tactics that confused the rigid Krovak formations. On the planet's surface, Marines and aliens fought together against mechanical invaders. And in hidden laboratories, Engineer Rivera worked desperately to find the enemy's weakness. "Dr. Grant, I need you to analyze these Krovak ship schematics," Rivera called out as explosions shook their underground base. "There has to be something we can exploit." Grant studied the data Morrison had gathered during weeks of observation. The Krovak ships were marvels of engineering, but they were designed for a specific purpose: strip mining planets. Every system was optimized for resource extraction. "Carlos, look at this. Their power distribution system is centralized through a single core. It's efficient for running mining equipment, but if we could overload it, Rivera's eyes lit up. An electromagnetic pulse. If we could hit them with a coordinated EMP attack, it would shut down their entire fleet. But we'd need to get close enough to plant charges on multiple ships simultaneously." Rivera grinned. "Leave that to me." In space, the battle raged with increasing intensity. Captain Morrison's horizon darted between Krovak ships like a minnow among sharks, drawing fire away from the larger human vessels. His crew had learned every trick for survival during their weeks of hiding. "Captain, 3 Krovak ships are moving to intercept Admiral Hayes," reported Lieutenant Barnes. Morrison didn't hesitate. "Set intercept course. All power to engines." Horizon raced toward the enemy formation, its weapons blazing. The small ship couldn't seriously damage the massive Krovak vessels, but it could distract them long enough for Hayes to escape. On the planet's surface, Commander Brooks led a desperate charge against Krovak ground forces. The mechanical invaders. had been winning through superior firepower, but they had never faced human marines working alongside alien warriors. Zara Vel Naktos fought beside Brooks, her people's bioweapons growing from the ground to entangle enemy machines while human. Explosives tore them apart. The Valthari had learned the art of war from their human allies, and they were quick students. "The mining complex is just ahead," Zara shouted over the noise of battle. "If we can destroy their equipment, they cannot dig out the remaining shelters." Brooks nodded and signaled his troops. Human soldiers and Valthari fighters charged together across the scarred landscape, their combined assault overwhelming the Korvac defenders. Back in space, Rivera's plan was taking shape. Captain Porter's mining ships had been modified to carry massive electromagnetic charges. If they could get close enough to the Korvac fleet, they could disable every enemy ship at once. "All mining vessels, this is Admiral Has. Execute Operation Thunderstrike on my signal." Porter's ships emerged from the gas giant's rings, their hulls disguised to look like floating debris. The Korvac sensors, designed to identify valuable minerals, ignored the approaching vessels until it was too late. "Now!" Hayes commanded. 20 modified mining charges detonated simultaneously throughout the Korvac fleet. The electromagnetic pulse washed over the enemy ships like an invisible wave, shorting out their electrical systems and leaving them drifting helplessly in space. Vex 9 watched his tactical displays go dark one by one. Emergency power flickered on, but most of his ship's systems were offline. Around him, his entire fleet floated dead in space. "How is this possible?" he demanded. "No species has ever defeated a Korvac fleet." His tactical officer's voice was filled with confusion. "Commander, these humans fight unlike any species in our database. They use their ships as weapons, coordinate with the native population, and employ tactics that appear to be completely random, but somehow work together." On Veilthara's surface, the disabled Korvac ground forces found themselves surrounded by combined human and Valthari forces. Without support from their fleet, the mechanical invaders were quickly overwhelmed. Admiral Hayes opened a communication channel to the enemy fleet commander. "This is Admiral Susan Hayes of the Terran Defense Fleet. Your forces are defeated. Surrender now and leave this system, or we will destroy your ships." Vex 9 stared at the human face on his screen. In 300 years of conquest, no species had ever offered him terms of surrender. The Korvac always won. "You cannot have defeated us. We are the Korvac. We consume worlds." Hayes's expression was cold as steel. "Not anymore. Not while humanity stands watch. Leave this system now and never return. If we find you attacking innocent species again, we will hunt you down." The threat in her voice was unmistakable. Vex 9 had studied the humans during the battle. They fought with a ferocity that defied logic, protecting strangers as if they were family. These beings would keep their promise. "We will leave," he said finally. "But others will come. The galaxy is full of predators. Then we'll be ready for them too." The surviving Korvac ships limped away from Valthara, their fleet broken and their confidence shattered. For the first time in their history, they had met a species that fought harder than they did. On the planet's surface, humans and Valthari worked together to rebuild what had been destroyed. The scars would take generations to heal, but Veilthara would live. In space, Admiral Hayes established a permanent base to protect the system. Captain Morrison stood with Commander Zara on the highest platform of the rebuilt city of Mylarin. The living towers were growing again, reaching toward the stars where human ships patrolled. "Your people saved us," Zara said. "We will never forget." Morrison smiled. "We protect those who cannot protect themselves. That's what humans do." Above them, the stars shone with new promise. Humanity had found its place in the galaxy. not as conquerors, but as guardians. And across the cosmos, other peaceful species would soon learn that when darkness threatened, help could come from the most unexpected places. In their darkest hour, humanity had come from space. Admiral Susan Hayes stood in the war room beneath the United Nations building, staring at the holographic display that showed Captain Morrison's message. Around her, representatives from every major nation on Earth sat in stunned silence. "Play it again," she ordered. Morrison's voice filled the room once more. "This is Captain Jake Morrison of the UN's Horizon, sending emergency transmission to Earth Command. We have made contact with an alien civilization under attack by hostile forces. The species calls itself Valthari, peaceful beings who live on a planet called Valthara in the Kepler 442 system. They are being systematically exterminated by invaders called the Krorvak, requesting immediate military assistance. These Krorvak appear to be a species that consumes entire worlds. If they are not stopped, they may eventually reach Earth." The message ended. Admiral Hayes looked around the table at the shocked faces of world leaders. In her 30 years of military service, she had never imagined this moment would come. Secretary General Maria Santos spoke first. "How certain are we that this message is genuine?" Dr. Benjamin Clark, Earth's leading expert on alien life, adjusted his tablet. "The transmission contains detailed scientific data about the star system, atmospheric conditions, and biological signatures. It would be impossible to fake this level of detail. Captain Morrison has definitely found real alien life." President Chun of the Pacific Federation leaned forward. "And these Krorvak? What do we know about them?" "According to Morrison's data, they appear to be silicon-based life forms that consume organic matter for resources. They travel in large fleets and strip planets completely bare. If his report is accurate, they represent a threat to all carbon-based life in the galaxy." Admiral Hayes had been preparing for this possibility her entire career. As head of Earth's combined space forces, she knew that humanity's expansion into space would eventually lead to contact with other species. She had hoped that contact would be peaceful. "How long to reach the Kepler 442 system?" she asked. "With our fastest ships, approximately 4 months," replied Fleet Captain Robert Stone. "Morrison says the aliens have perhaps weeks left. We need to move faster." Dr. Clark spoke up. "Admiral, we could retrofit cargo ships with faster-than-light drives. They wouldn't be as fast as military vessels, but we could carry more ships that way." Hayes nodded. "Do it. I want every available ship prepared for immediate departure. Military, vessels, cargo haulers, even civilian craft if they volunteer." Over the next 72 hours, Earth's spaceports became scenes of frantic activity. The planet's entire fleet was being assembled for humanity's first interstellar war. Ships that had never been designed for combat were fitted with weapons and armor. Civilians volunteered their vessels to carry supplies and personnel. The flagship, TFS Liberation, led the growing fleet. Around it gathered 36 other ships of every size and description. Some were sleek military destroyers built for speed and firepower. Others were converted mining ships, their industrial equipment turned into improvised weapons. Hayes stood on the Liberation's bridge, watching the final preparations. Her fleet was untested in real combat against an unknown enemy. Many of her ships had crews who had never fired a shot in anger. But they were all volunteers, and they were going to save an innocent species from extinction. "Admiral, we're receiving another transmission from Captain Morrison," reported Communications Officer Linda Walsh. Morrison's image appeared on the main screen. He looked tired and stressed, but determined. Behind him, Hayes could see alien figures moving about his bridge. The Valthari had actually come aboard his ship. "Admiral Hayes, the situation here is getting worse." The Korvac have begun using deep mining equipment to dig out the underground shelters. We've managed to evacuate about 50,000 Valthari to safer locations, but we can't hold out much longer. My engineer, Carlos Rivera, has been working with the aliens to create hybrid weapons using their biotechnology and our equipment. It's helping, but we're still vastly outnumbered. A transmission showed images of the battle below. Hayes watched human soldiers fighting alongside tall, green-skinned aliens against mechanical monsters that looked like walking tanks. The humans moved with trained precision, while the aliens used weapons that seemed to grow from the ground itself. Morrison, this is Admiral Hayes. Help is on the way. Hold your position and protect as many civilians as possible. We'll be there in 8 weeks. Morrison's expression grew grim. 8 weeks may be too long, Admiral, but we'll do our best. The transmission ended. Hayes turned to her tactical officer. How are our preparations coming? All ships report ready? For departure, Admiral. We have 43 vessels total, carrying 12,000 personnel. Hayes looked out at her fleet through the bridge windows. It was the largest military force humanity had ever assembled, but she wondered if it would be enough. According to Morrison's reports, the Korvac had over 50 ships, each larger than anything in the human fleet. Dr. Clark, what have you learned? About Korvac technology? The scientist pulled up his analysis on the main screen. Their ships appear to be optimized for mining and resource extraction rather than pure military combat. They rely on overwhelming firepower and superior numbers. However, their technology seems rigid, designed for specific purposes. They may not adapt well to unexpected tactics. What about their ground forces? Silicon-based robots with powerful weapons and armor, but they're designed to fight organic beings with limited technology. They may not be prepared for human military equipment and tactics. Hayes nodded. Humanity's greatest advantage had always been adaptability. While other species specialized, humans learned to use whatever tools were available. During the journey to Kepler 442, the fleet trained constantly. Human ships practiced coordinated attacks and defensive formations. Marines rehearsed assault tactics that could work against mechanical enemies. Engineers modified weapons and equipment based on the data Morrison was sending back. Captain Amy Porter commanded a squadron of converted mining ships. Her vessels looked nothing like traditional warships, but their industrial equipment had been turned into devastating weapons. Plasma cutters became ship-to-ship weapons. Mining charges were converted into guided missiles. The key is not to fight them the way they expect, Hayes told her officers during a strategy meeting. They've probably encountered other species before, but they've never fought humans. We need to use that to our advantage. Meanwhile, in the Kepler 442 system, Morrison continued his desperate holding action. His ship moved constantly through the asteroid fields and outer planets, never staying in one place long enough for the Korvac to corner him. His crew worked with Valthari refugees to establish hidden bases on moons and asteroids. Rivera had made remarkable progress combining human and Valthari technology. The aliens' biotechnology could grow weapons and equipment from raw materials, while human engineering provided the tactical knowledge to make them effective. Together, they created hybrid systems that neither species could have developed alone. Captain, we're detecting increased Korvac activity near the main refugee camp, reported Dr. Grant. They're bringing in heavy mining equipment. Morrison studied the tactical display. The largest group of Valthari survivors was hidden in a mountain complex on the planet's northern continent. If the Korvac found them, 30,000 aliens would die. Prepare for atmospheric entry, Morrison ordered. We're going down to help. The horizon descended through Valthara's atmosphere like a falling star. Below, the once beautiful world showed the scars of invasion. Burned forests, poisoned rivers, and strip-mined mountains marked where the Krovak had passed. Morrison's ship landed near the mountain complex just as Krovak ground forces began their assault. Human marines and alien defenders fought side by side, using every trick and weapon they could devise. The battle was fierce but brief. The Krovak had not expected such organized resistance. As the enemy retreated, Morrison looked up at the stars and wondered if Admiral Hayes would arrive in time. The Krovak were growing more determined with each passing day. Soon, even human ingenuity might not be enough to save their remaining Valfari, but help was coming. Somewhere in the darkness between stars, humanity's first interstellar fleet was racing toward Valthara, carrying hope for two species and the promise that evil would not go unopposed. Captain Jake Morrison was drinking his morning coffee when the universe changed forever. He sat in his command chair aboard the UN's horizon, watching the stars through the main viewport. The ship moved slowly through the emptiness between solar systems, its sensors scanning for new planets and signs of life. For 3 months, they had found nothing but empty space and dead rocks. Morrison liked the quiet of deep space. After 20 years in the military, fighting wars on Mars and the asteroid colonies, he enjoyed exploring instead of destroying. The Horizon carried scientists, not soldiers. Their mission was to learn, not to conquer. Captain, we're receiving a signal, called Lieutenant Amy Barnes from the communication station. It's very faint, but the computer says it's artificial. Someone sent this on purpose. Morrison set down his coffee cup. In all of humanity's travels through space, they had never found signs of intelligent life. Earth scientists had begun to wonder if humans were alone in the galaxy. Put it on the main screen. The bridge fell silent as an alien voice filled the air. The words were strange at first, but the ship's computer quickly learned the language patterns and began translating. This is Commander Zaravel Naktos of the world Valfara. We are a peaceful people under attack by hostile forces. They destroy everything living and harvest worlds for resources. If anyone receives this message, beware of ships that look like black metal stars. They show no mercy and take no prisoners. If you have weapons, if you can fight, please help us. We have done nothing wrong. We only want to live. The message repeated several times, then faded into static. Morrison stared at the screen, his mind racing. First contact with an alien species, and they were asking for help. Dr. Lisa Grant, ship's lead scientist, spoke first. Captain, the signal came from the Kepler 442 system. That's about 15 light years from here. We could reach it in 6 days. This could be a trap, warned Security Chief Tony Webb. We don't know anything about these aliens. They could be lying to draw us into an ambush. Morrison stood and walked to the star charts. The Kepler 442 system appeared on the screen, a small yellow star with several planets. According to their files, one of the planets might support life. What do you think, Doctor? He asked Grant. The scientist adjusted her glasses and looked at the translation data. The language patterns suggest genuine emotion, Captain. Fear, desperation, hope. It would be very difficult to fake those vocal stress patterns. I believe this message is real. Morrison thought about his orders. Earth Command had been very clear. Avoid contact with hostile aliens and report any discoveries immediately. But the message spoke of an entire world under attack by creatures that destroyed everything in their path. He remembered the Martian Independence War, when corporate armies had attacked civilian settlements. He had been a young lieutenant then, and his commanding officer had chosen to follow orders instead of helping the civilians. Morrison had watched good people die while they waited for permission to act. Set course for Kepler 442, he ordered. Maximum speed. Sir, our orders are to avoid contact with unknown aliens, Webb reminded him. Our orders are also to protect innocent life when possible. That message was a cry for help. I won't ignore it. The horizon turned toward the distant star system and jumped to faster-than-light travel. During the 6-day journey, the crew prepared for whatever they might find. Dr. Grant studied the alien language, learning more about the people who had sent the message. The Valthari seemed to be plant-like beings who lived in harmony with their world. Engineer Carlos Rivera worked on modifying their sensors to gather as much information as possible when they arrived. The ship's small security team, led by Webb, prepared their weapons and equipment. Morrison spent the time thinking about what they might be walking into. The Horizon was not a warship. It carried only basic defensive weapons and a crew of 200. If they found a real battle waiting for them, there would be little they could do. On the 6th day, they dropped out of faster-than-light travel at the edge of the Kepler 442 system. What they saw made Morrison's blood run cold. The system was full of alien ships. Massive black vessels moved between the planets like hungry sharks. They were exactly as the message had described. Ships that looked like dark metal stars, covered in weapons and armor. Count 53 large ships, Captain, reported Barnes. Sensors are also detecting thousands of smaller craft moving between the planets. The main screen focused on the planet Valthara. From space, it looked like a wounded animal. Dark scars covered what had once been green continents. Smoke rose from burning forests. The beautiful blue world was dying. Are we detecting any activity from the planet's surface? Morrison asked. Rivera checked his instruments. Yes, sir. I'm reading energy signatures from underground locations. Some of the population is still alive. Morrison watched the alien ships strip mining the planet's surface. These invaders were not just conquering the world. They were consuming it completely. Everything that had made Valthara beautiful was being destroyed. Captain, one of the alien ships is changing course, Webb warned. They may have detected us. The black ship moved toward them like a predator sensing prey. It was 3 times larger than the Horizon, bristling with weapons that could destroy them in seconds. Take us into the asteroid field near the 4th planet, Morrison ordered. Use the rocks for cover. We need to avoid a fight until we know more. The Horizon slipped between the asteroids, hiding among the floating rocks while the alien ship searched for them. Morrison watched the hunter pass nearby, its dark hull reflecting no light. Dr. Grant, can you establish contact with the survivors on the planet? Grant worked at her station, sending careful signals toward Valthara. After several tense minutes, she looked up with excitement. I'm receiving a response, Captain. Someone is answering. The main screen flickered, then showed the face of an alien being. Morrison found himself looking at Commander Zara Velnactos for the first time. She was tall and graceful, with green-tinted skin and large, intelligent eyes. Despite her alien appearance, her expression of desperate hope was completely human. Who are you? Zara asked through the translator. How did you receive our message? I am Captain Jake Morrison of the human starship Horizon. We heard your call for help. Zara's eyes widened. Humans? Another species that travels between stars? Yes, we came as soon as we received your message. What is the situation on your world? Zara's expression grew grim. The Krorvak have been attacking for 7 days. They have destroyed most of our cities and killed millions of my people. We are hiding in underground shelters, but they are hunting us with mining equipment. We cannot hold out much longer. Morrison clenched his fists. The peaceful alien civilization was being systematically exterminated by these Krorvak invaders. How? Many of your people are left? Perhaps 2 million, scattered across the planet in small groups. We were once 40 million strong. The number hit Morrison like a physical blow. 38 million beings had died in just 1 week. The scale of the genocide was overwhelming. Commander Zara, we want to help, but our ship is not designed for combat. We have only basic weapons and a small crew. Zara nodded sadly. I understand. You cannot fight 50 ships with one, but perhaps you can carry a warning to other worlds. Tell them about the Krovak. Maybe others can prepare better than we did. Morrison made a decision that would change the course of human history. We're not leaving you to die, Commander. Give me the locations of your survivors. We'll do what we can to help while we wait for reinforcements. Reinforcements? Zara asked with confusion. Morrison smiled grimly. I'm sending a message to my home world. Humans don't abandon friends in need. Help is coming. Zara Velnacto stood on the highest platform of the city of Mylarn, watching the morning sun paint the living towers in shades of gold and green. The city stretched below her like a vast garden, its buildings grown from ancient seeds rather than built with stone or metal. Vines carried water through hollow stems, while the walls themselves breathed, filtering the air for all who lived within. She loved these quiet moments before the day began. Birds that looked like flying flowers drifted between the tower branches, their songs mixing with the gentle hum of the city's life systems. This was Velthara, her world, her home. For 3,000 years, her people had lived in harmony with their planet, never knowing war, never needing to fight. Today felt different. Something was wrong. The communication crystal at her wrist pulsed with urgent light. She touched it gently, and the voice of Keth Morvalios, her second in command, filled her mind. Commander, you need to come to the observation center immediately. We are detecting something in the outer system. Zara closed her eyes and felt the living platform beneath her feet. Like all Valthari, she could sense the planet's mood through the neural networks that connected every living thing. Today, Valthara felt uneasy, as if it sensed danger approaching from the dark between stars. She made her way down through the city, using the transport vines that carried citizens between levels. Other Valthari moved about their daily tasks, tending to the gardens that fed them, working with the biomachines that powered their civilization. None of them seemed to notice the wrongness she felt. The observation center grew from the heart of Mylarn, its crystal dome reaching high above the other structures. Inside, dozens of her people worked at living consoles, their hands merged temporarily with the organic computers that watched the skies. Keth waited for her at the central display, his normally calm face showing worry. The Valthari were tall and graceful, their skin having a green tint that helped them process sunlight. Keth's usual serenity was gone. Show me, Zara said. The display came alive, showing the space around their star system. At the very edge, where their sensors could barely reach, dark shapes moved between the planets. The computer enhanced the images, and Zara felt her heart sink. Ships. Massive, angular vessels that looked nothing like the curved, flowing designs her people preferred. These ships were built for war, covered in weapons and armor plating. They moved in formation, like predators hunting prey. How many? She asked. We count at least 20 large vessels, with many smaller ones around them. They will reach our world in 3 days at their current speed. Zara stared at the display. Her people had always wondered if other life existed among the stars. They had sent out peaceful messages for centuries, hoping to find friends. Instead, it seemed they had been found by enemies. Have they tried to communicate with us? No, Commander. They ignore all our signals. But we have detected energy signatures from other star systems along their path. Dead systems, where life once existed, but now shows no signs of activity. The truth hit Zara like a physical blow. These beings destroyed worlds. They had come to destroy Valthara. Send word to all the cities. Begin moving the children and elderly to the mountain shelters. Alert the Defense Council. Keth nodded and began sending messages through the planet's bio-network. Within minutes, every Valthari on the planet would know of the approaching danger. Zara walked to the edge of the dome and looked out over her beautiful city. Her people had defense systems, but they were designed to protect against natural disasters, not war. They could create barriers of living energy, redirect harmful radiation, even heal damaged areas of the planet. But they had no weapons designed to kill. The next 3 days passed in a blur of desperate preparation. The Valthari evacuated there. Cities moving millions of people to underground shelters and remote mountain fortresses. They had never needed to plan for war before, and everything took longer than it should have. Zara stood in the command center they had grown beneath Mount Kelvanos, the planet's highest peak. Through the living screens, she watched as the first enemy ships entered their atmosphere. They were even more frightening up close. Black metal monsters that blocked out the sun as they passed overhead. The attack began without warning. Streams of acid fell from the enemy ships, dissolving everything they touched. The beautiful city of Mylaran, where Zara had watched the sunrise just days ago, melted like ice and fire. 3,000 years of growth died in minutes. They are targeting all our cities, reported Vel Doskarian, her tactical coordinator. The bio-network is being severed. We are losing contact with half our population centers. On the screens, Zara watched her world burn. The enemy ground forces looked like walking machines made of metal and crystal. They moved across the dying cities, harvesting something from the ruins. They seemed to be mining the very bones of her world. Commander, we are receiving a signal from the enemy fleet. The main screen filled with an image that made Zara step backward. The creature speaking was unlike anything in her worst nightmares. It had no organic parts at all, just crystal and metal formed into a roughly humanoid shape. When it spoke, its voice sounded like grinding stones. Organic beings of this world, you will cease resistance and submit to processing. Your biological matter will be converted to useful materials. Your planet will be prepared for extraction. Compliance will reduce suffering duration. The transmission ended. Zara stared at the blank screen, understanding finally what they faced. These beings did not see her people as living creatures. To them, the Valthari were just another resource to be harvested. How long can our shelters hold? She asked. Perhaps a month, if we are careful with resources. But they have equipment designed to dig deep. Eventually, they will find us. Zara made a decision that went against every instinct her peaceful people possessed. Prepare the quantum burst transmitter. Maximum power. Commander, that will use most of our remaining energy reserves. Do it. She moved to the transmitter, a living crystal that could send messages across vast distances. If we are going to die, at least we can warn others. Maybe someone out there will listen. She placed her hands on the crystal and felt its power flow. Through her. Into space, toward the distant stars, she sent her message. This is Commander Zara Vel Nakdos of the world Veilfara. We are a peaceful people under attack by hostile forces. They destroy everything living and harvest worlds for resources. If anyone receives this message, beware of ships that look like black metal stars. They show no mercy and take no prisoners. If you have weapons, if you can fight, please help us. We have done nothing wrong. We only want to live. The crystal went dark. Her message was now racing through space at the speed of light, carrying her people's final plea to anyone who might be listening. Zara looked around at her remaining people. They were afraid, but they trusted her to find a way to save them. She only wished she knew how.